Good afternoon, Cumberland County, and welcome to the Boiling Point. This is Mariana from the Watchdog Report, and today we're going to be howling out some facts. So today is part 2 of the video that we started yesterday, and we are addressing the issue of the parents that came to the school board to discuss how their special needs child was manhandled and also denied the right to go to the bathroom, okay, as needed. The child had to make a couple of requests, and that is in every shape and form unacceptable. But we're going to discuss the second part of this today, and that is that they did state that the teacher's aide manhandled the child, grabbed the child by the hand in anger, or by not by the hand, but by the arm in anger. And the teacher, kind of got smart with the child also. When the child requested for the teacher's aide to let go of his arm, the reply that the child got was, well, if you don't listen to me, why should I listen to you? Now, whether that comment came from the teacher's aide or from the teacher, well, I am going to research that further. I do believe, though, that it was from the teacher's aide. But regardless who said it, it was incorrect. You're supposed to be the adult. So that leads to today's question and concern, which is, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, if a teacher is reprimanding a child who is being compliant to the teacher's request, is the teacher or a teacher's aide allowed to grab the child by the arm and not let the child go, even after the child requests to be let go, to let their arm go? Is this considered restraint of a child? Are there possible repercussions for the teacher and the aide? So there are people in our community saying, oh, that wasn't restraint. That wasn't restraint. Some people saying that it was. Okay, so I did a little bit of research to see which of the two it is, because we only need to be fair, correct? And we will always be fair with what we present. So let's see what the research revealed. Okay, so is this allowed? This is not allowed and could be considered an inappropriate use of physical restraint, so it is restraint, or excessive force, especially since the child is being compliant. And this is a situation, this child, according to mom and dad, was being compliant, and there was no reason that the teacher or the teacher's aide or both had to take the child by the arm and try to restrain the child when there was no reason for it. So it can be considered an inappropriate use of physical restraint or excessive force. And we dug in a little bit deeper. So these are the key rules in Pennsylvania. Let me put my glasses on because I am blind as a bat. So the key rules in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania distinguishes between general education students and students with disability who have stricter protections under special education rules like 22 PA Code 14.13. Now, when I give these codes out, guys, you can actually go online, key in those codes, and read it for yourself. So the definition of physical restraint, it occurs when an adult uses physical force to restrain the free movement of a student's body. Now, there are exceptions, okay, and these are the exceptions. What does not count as restraint? So what does not count as restraint is briefly holding a student without force to calm or comfort them, guide them to an activity, or hold their hand to safely escort them. Grabbing a child's arm and refusing to let go after they requested release, while they are compliant and not posing any danger, likely exceeds these expectations. And I'm not going to just say likely, I'm going to say they exceed, okay? It involves ongoing force to restrict movement for disciplinary reasons rather than a brief minimal guidance. So this teacher's aide or teacher, I do believe it was the aide, let him or herself, be moved by anger. Okay, their decision was based on anger versus logic and empathy. And that is concerning, guys. Either way you put it, it is concerning. When is force or restraint allowed? Because there is a time in which it is allowed. Okay, and for all students, you'll find that at 22 PA Code 12.5. And it also states that corporal punishment, physically punishing for breaking rules, is prohibited. Teachers, however, may use reasonable force only in specific situations, such as to stop a disturbance or quell a disturbance, to obtain weapons or dangerous objects from the student for self-defense, and to protect persons or property. So if the teacher has to protect him or herself or any member of the classroom, okay, or there's a situation in which they believe that the child has a weapon, or they see that the child has a weapon, or a disturbance was created, at that point, for safety reasons, the teacher may use reasonable force, okay, in these situations. However, for students with disability, stricter rules you'll find that under Chapter 14. Physical restraint for a child with a disability is a last resort and only for acute, episodic, aggressive, or self-injurious behavior posing a clear and present danger to the student or others. As the less restrictive measures like de-escalation fails, it cannot be used as punishment, compliance, or non-emergency. So when you're dealing with a special ed child, please understand that these rules are stricter, okay? And unless this child is giving you a reason, a concern, like they're a danger to themselves, a danger to the class, a danger to the teacher, they have a weapon, you are not allowed, okay? You are not allowed to put your hands on them, period. So what are the probable or possible repercussions for the teacher and the teacher's aide in this situation if this is properly investigated? Properly means probably, okay? Everybody question, pull cameras, whatever they have to verify or decertify what's being stated. Not something what we have seen for many years in the West Shore School District that they decided didn't happen because that's my buddy or my buddy's wife, okay? And we're gonna make this go away. So we're gonna, we're gonna defame and slander the parents because that is typical West Shore. That's typical West Shore School District. And any parent who has lived down with the West Shore School District can attest that what I'm saying is the truth. But what are the proper repercussions for the teacher and or teacher's aide in this situation? First and foremost, school level investigation by administration, which will probably not happen. Disciplinary action, training requirements, or termination. Schools must follow their own policies and state guidelines. Reporting requirements. Every student with disabilities, improper restraints often require parental notification and an IEP meeting. Unreported or unjustified restraints can lead to violations, as we spoke in the previous video, FERPA and IDEA. Legal risks. It could be viewed as assault, battery, forced imprisonment, or child abuse in extreme cases. Parents could file complaints with the school, Pennsylvania Department of Education, or the police. Civil lawsuit for excessive force are possible. Criminal, rare for minor conduct, but repeated or forceful incidents, especially causing injury or trauma, can lead to charges. Court and districts generally give teachers some leeway for maintaining order, but holding a compliant child against their will crosses into unnecessary force. I'm going to read that again. Holding a compliant child against their will crosses into unnecessary force. Think about that for a minute, especially for all the little critics out there. So what are the recommendations for the parent? If you're a parent and you're facing this situation, what is recommended that you do? First, document the incident, date, time, witnesses, what was said, if there was any marks on the child's body or injury. Report it to the school principal or administrator promptly. I mean, do it anyway, but if you ain't sure, not going to get you really anywhere when it comes to point two, but still do it. Okay, document, document, document. If the child has an IEP or 504 plan, involve special education, staff, or an advocate. Escalate to the Pennsylvania Department of Education or a student rights organization if the school does not address it adequately. Consult a lawyer specializing in education or student rights for personalized advice, especially if injury or trauma occurred. And trauma in its different ways and form can occur when you're dealing with a special ed child. Not that it can't with a regular ed child. It can, but with a special ed child, it can be twofold. It can be very impacting, something scary. They can withdraw. And these are just some of the things that can happen when you're dealing with a special ed child and when you're not dealing appropriately with them. Now, you can also file a complaint online or by mail using the FERPA complaint form, or you can email FERPA at ferpa.complaint@ed.gov. You want to mail a letter of complaint or actually get the form, because you can get the form online. You're going to mail it to the Student Privacy Police Office at the U.S. Department of Education, 400 Maryland Avenue Southwest, Washington, D.C., 20202-8520. Now, there is a statute of limitations. So you have to file this report, okay, or this form, this complaint, generally within 180 days from when the violation took place. So keep in mind that there is a statute of limitation for filing. You can also involve IDEA, the Individuals with Disability Education, okay, especially if the child is special ed or has IEP services. There is a state complaint form. They investigate and can address both the procedural and confidentiality issues. So here, as we saw in the first video, there was some confidentiality that was violated to the degree that we had a nanny come online and put out the student's business out there, okay, and state that it was some general education and special ed teachers that provided her some information they should have never provided. And it seems they also provided information on the IEP. So you can submit a written state complaint, okay, that's an official complaint packet and form. You can email it to ra-p-despecialed special ed at pa.gov. You can also mail it to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, Bureau of Special Education, Attention Division of Compliance Monitoring and Planning, -East, 607 South Drive, 5th floor, East Wing, Harrisburg, PA, 17120. However, you have to report this within 60 days of when it occurred. Now, it's an official page, PDE Special Education Complaints, or through the Office of Dispute Resolution, ODR. So you can go to these pages, find these forms, download these forms, fill them out, and submit them. So, again, was this restraint or wasn't it? It can be considered restraint, yes. It can also be considered excessive force. But one thing that it definitely was inappropriate. So you can sit there, look at this video, hear people talk, run your mouth all you want. Facts are facts. privacy was violated. FERPA was violated. IDEA was violated. Physical restraint happened. Excessive force happened because obviously we had somebody who is not well trained for this job, somebody who may need anger management, somebody that may need to take up methodology, psychology all over again to understand the mind of a special need child and the fears and their reactions when it comes to certain things, certain issues, when they're being confronted over wrongdoing, or their attention's being called for something that was perceived to be incorrectly. But in this situation, none of that applied because all the kid wanted to do was go to the bathroom. And that is everybody's right. All the child needed to do was go to the bathroom. But because we have one or two people there with chips on their shoulders, okay, thinking that they were Almighty God because they were the authority in the room, they decide to mistreat this child. And it's become the can of worms that you see now. So we are going to end it with reminding you that if you're looking for a home or want to establish a business and live in that same neighborhood, and you find yourself in one of the communities that is controlled, the education is controlled by the West Shore School District, and you have children, don't buy the home. But if you must absolutely have the home because this is your dream home, or this is the place that you want to do business and live in, then consider alternative education. Consider cyber school, consider charter school, consider homeschooling, consider religious school. If you go to a church and they have an academy, consider that. Because some of these churches do offer scholarships to help, children out also if you feel that you can't afford, the tuition. Some of these churches do offer certain scholarships. You may want to look into that. But whatever you do not put your child in the public school system here at the West Shore. Do not. Because they're more focused on state and federal funding than on the needs of the children and your family. That being stated, this is Mariana from The Boiling Point. I hope I helped some of the factually challenged people in our community understand certain facts. God bless you. Goodbye.